G'day there guys, if you were wondering where Kanye West was, he's still here after the divorce. He's just got a really broken heart. It's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA. Now if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn in the barbie, and get ready for some more good stories. Let's go. Posted by user Hotel Bravo. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not explicitly telling my grandpa I'm married to another woman? So my wife and I are both women in our late 20s. We've been together for 4 years and got married this summer after getting engaged in the spring. Due to restrictions and personal preference, we did a courthouse wedding with each of our sisters as our maids of honor. It was a relatively simple affair, and my wife and I are pleased with how low-key it was. Before we got married, I was not out to my extended family members. I was very close with my grandma and was afraid of how she might react. Sadly, she passed away shortly before our wedding, so she never got to know that my wife was more than a friend. I'm not very close to my grandpa, but I do try to call him once a week to chit-chat. He's very reserved and soft-spoken, so our conversations are typically 5 minutes of fluff about work and the weather. I'd introduced my wife to my grandparents. They met her a few times before my grandma passed away. They only knew her as my roommate and friend, as I wasn't out at the time. But I would tell my grandma about fun things we did together, and honestly, I think she might have known that we were a couple. In retrospect, Grandpa probably didn't pick up on it because I'm not nearly as close to him as I was with her, so when we visited, he would say hi and chat with us for a little bit before going in his workshop while we stayed with my grandma in the house. After the wedding, I decided I couldn't hide who I was any longer, and posted our wedding pics to social media, saying that we had gotten married and I was happy to spend the rest of my life with the woman I loved. Many of my extended family reached out to congratulate us, and the overall response was very positive. For Christmas, we send out Christmas cards to all of my relatives with our engagement and wedding. Fast forward to last week, my parents, siblings, wife, and I stopped by to visit my grandpa and exchange presents, with masks on, of course. When we got to his house, I said, "Grandpa, you remember wife's name?" And he said hi and asked about her parents, and that was that. Everyone was sitting in a circle around the living room. I was sitting next to my wife on the couch, with my arm on the back of the couch around her, while we went around and everyone opened presents. I got a cookbook that my grandma had picked out for me before she passed, and I started to tear up. My wife held my hand for a while to comfort me. The next day, my mom reached out saying that my grandpa didn't know that my wife and I were together until he saw me hanging all over my wife. I'm sure these are my mom's words. I told her that I genuinely thought he knew, and that if someone hadn't talked to him about it after we posted it on social media, he would have realized from the Christmas cards, which featured a close-up of the rings. He had asked my mum about it after the party, and she had to tell him. She says it should have been from me. My mum told me that it was my responsibility to tell him, and that he shouldn't have found out that way. Am I the a-hole for not specifically telling my grandpa I'm married to a woman? My mum says it isn't the end of the world, but I can tell she's kind of upset. My wife said that she didn't think any PDA that we did have was not over the top, and nothing my siblings wouldn't do with their significant others who weren't present. And a friend said that it's not on me to make sure everyone knows about my marriage. I think this is a no a-holes here situation, in all honesty. There's arguments to be made for slight you're the a-hole for not explicitly saying, "Hey grandpa, you remember my wife, right?" Instead of you just rocking up and saying, "Oh hey, you remember insert friend's name?" Maybe some homophobia from your grandpa or mother's side exists that you're not telling us about? That's speculation, of course, but it could explain why you never decided to tell your grandpa yourself, and why your mum never told your grandpa about it either. I can't fault the grandpa or your mum too much in this situation either though. It seems like you put them both in a tricky spot here. Again, my judgment is no a-holes here. I don't particularly know why you avoided straight up saying wife, but I'm not you, and that slight in communication isn't the end of the world. Now in the comments, NeveK13 says, I think it's a bit weird that you have a weekly call with your granddad and didn't tell him you were married. Regardless of the gender of your partner, it must have been weird and uncomfortable for him to just not be told at all that you're married. And then mum has to tell him, yes, she's married, she just didn't think to tell you. Slight, you're the a-hole? Slight. You don't owe anyone personal info, but you've maintained a relationship with a family member and essentially told everyone a big piece of news except him. Like, if you called him weekly and then turned up with a 6-month-old baby, having never even mentioned the pregnancy or birth to him, and your mum has to confirm it's your baby? Just like you being engaged and getting married, these are pretty big life events. Yes, you can say that you don't have to tell anyone about your baby, but it's still weird to exclude this info from one person. And OP replies, I think you hit the nail on the head. I should have told him. If my grandma was still with us, I definitely would have told her. My grandpa and I never really had a close relationship, and the main reason I call him is because I know he misses her, and I wanted to help distract him, even a little bit. I think a part of me just didn't want to have the tough conversation. I was hoping the Christmas card got the point across, but knowing him, he might have just glanced at it and then set it aside. And in response to that, NeveK13 says, I think this is so normal, and it's probably one of those things that the longer it's put off, the harder it's going to be. I wouldn't worry or dwell on it. Your mum's right that it's not the end of the world. I'm sure your granddad really appreciates and looks forward to your calls too. It's great that you make the effort for them. And OP replies, that makes me feel so much better. Thank you so much. Hold up. How did you post pictures of your wedding and sending out Christmas cards with wedding and engagement details and a close-up of rings not count towards telling your grandfather you got married to a woman? You did inform him. Did he throw the information away without reading it? That's on him, not on you. I actually don't know that it's a requirement to personally sit down every extended family member and look them deep in the eyes and say, I'm gay, in order to tell family members that you're gay. Depending on the size of your family and where they live, that's like a month of driving and personal visits. Not the a-hole. And Apple Thrower 5000 says, no a-holes here. Should you have told him? Yeah, that seems clear, but I hesitate to call anyone an a-hole for not outing themselves before they feel ready. Your behavior at the party probably was completely appropriate for a spouse, but was clearly not how a friend would behave, and it must have been jarring for him to realize in that moment. Your mum is probably upset because your grandfather is upset about being left in the dark, and she feels protective of him. I agree with your friends to an extent. It's not your responsibility per se, but we all can give our elders a little extra, assuming they aren't a-holes, in situations like this. I called and made sure my grandma knew that I was pregnant because it was pretty obvious she wasn't going to understand the picture announcement that we sent out to everyone. This was a good point. The grandpa probably feels like he wasn't trusted. Outing myself to people, especially older people, brings a lot of anxiety with it. But I try my best because I don't want them to feel betrayed later on. Sometimes I don't bring it up because I'm truly not interested in what they think about gay people and my relationship. People have shared some strange thoughts on the matter, so I don't give them the chance. It's like someone making a joke about my name. I have a funny name. First time for them, millionth time for me. Same reason wifey and I don't hold hands in public. No a-holes here, but it would have been polite to give your grandpa a chance. And now on to the update. I just want to thank everyone who commented. I read through them all, and it really helped me process the situation. I spoke with my mum a few hours the night after I posted, and she apologized for a comment about my wife and I hanging all over each other. I apologized for putting her in the situation she was in, and that I genuinely thought he had known. She basically said that it was okay, he knows now, and not to worry. She had talked to him and told him that we were together, but didn't tell him we were married, which she said needed to come from me. I agreed, and I said I was going to give him some time to process and reflect on things, and that I didn't want to reach out too soon before he was ready. I waited a week to talk to him, and in that time an aunt of mine said she spoke with him. They spoke for a while, and his general sentiment was that he was worried that we could lead happy lives together, i.e., could we find a home, could we have kids, would we be able to keep our jobs? She said they had a really good talk and that she was able to reassure him on his worries. She told me I should talk to him and give him a chance to see how happy we are. This weekend I went to visit him. My aunt and mum came with too. After we chatted for a while, I told my grandpa that I had some news. I told him that my wife and I had actually gotten married this summer. I made it clear that it was a very small ceremony and that our parents couldn't even attend, and that because of that, we're planning on having a big wedding celebration in a year or two after the pandemic is over, so all of our family and friends could celebrate. I explained that I was just nervous to tell him, and that I was worried what he would think. He said, "Well, I'm 85. My opinion doesn't matter." We talked a little bit more, and I made sure to mention that we were very happy and that our jobs knew and our neighbors knew when we bought our house. I also mentioned that my wife's parents went to the same college my parents and all my mum's siblings went to, and he thought that was pretty cool. I told him that I didn't have a chance to tell Grandma before she passed, and that I really miss her and had hoped that she could see how happy we were together. We all had a little cry and talked about how much we miss her. The next morning, a different aunt called me and said that when she went and visited Grandpa, he was all excited, and he said, "Did you hear that we're going to have a big party after the pandemic? OP's having a wedding celebration." She and I had a good talk, and it sounds like Grandpa is doing well with the news, and that everything worked out okay. Now in the comments, Zio Carr says, "Glad it worked out, but do you still think you aren't close with your grandpa? Last thread you said you weren't close and called him once a week. That's probably far closer than most people have with their own grandparents. Once a week is a lot for many adult friendships." And OP replies, "I guess I would say I'm not close to my grandpa compared to how close I was with my grandma. She and I spoke multiple times a week, but I guess that there are some people who rarely see or speak to their own grandparents, so in comparison, we're close. I don't even talk to my parents once a week. I should call my grandma more often though. She's the last one I have, and I only talk to her a few times a year." And OP replies again, "This thread is really making me realize how lucky I am to have such a tight-knit family. I talk to my mum or dad every few days just to chit-chat and catch up. I do the same with my grandma. We all grew up in the same area, so everyone in my extended family was able to visit all the time. I'm very grateful. Definitely give your grandma a call. After mine passed, my aunt was telling me how much she cherished our chats and always looked forward to them. I just loved to catch up with her on all the gossip and chat about the new recipes we tried. Man, I really miss her." And Arkan Yatin says, "And that our jobs knew and our neighbors knew when we bought our house. Am I missing something here? Why do the jobs and neighbors need to know?" And OP replies, "Those were specific things he told my aunt he was worried about. Would I be able to keep my job? Would we stay where we lived, etc. Just wanted to reassure him since I know he was wondering about it." Our next post is by user TheNins9, titled, "Would I be the a-hole if I essentially let down my friend when I'm her only option? Both 18 female." So tomorrow we've planned to have a picnic in some historical monuments, all under the pandemic's protective measures, but since the country is doing okay and the cases are considerably low, we're permitted to go out before curfew. Here's the thing. My friend just texted me, like less than 2 hours ago, not asking me, but telling me that we will be going together to the picnic. I was like, huh? Now, the thing is, no one has a car. My friends just got their driving licenses and I'm still working on mine, and we will all be taking the bus to reach the place where we're hanging out. I told her that I live very, very far away from her, and she can't expect me to wait for her to get out of some language course that she has in the morning. So wait for her for 3 hours while my friends wait for us in another part of the city. Then come all the way where she's at, lose money and time and energy just so I can go with her. Especially since I've already made plans as to how I'll go. AKA, take the bus, which is 2 minutes away from home, drop off nearby the place we've decided to go where a friend of mine who lives there will drive me, and she just told me in the last minute instead of like 2 days ago. She got very hurt and countered by saying that she hasn't seen us in months, that she wouldn't be coming if I don't get her because she doesn't go around the city in buses and doesn't want to get in one alone, that she was relying on me, and that basically I don't want to come get her so that I can meet my friend, who's going to drive me. At that point, I just told her coolly that I'm going to call her back later. My friends, who we are hanging out with tomorrow, told me to just come alone, since waiting for her will end up in me staying there for 2 hours instead of the normally agreed upon 5 hours. Curfew, you know? But I feel kinda bad because I know she genuinely thought I wouldn't say no. So would I be the a-hole if I told her that no, I won't be helping her out on this one? Or should I just wait for her to finish her morning lectures and go get her? So your friend just assumed and then continues to expect you to cut 3 hours out of your time hanging out with your group just to do some stupid round journey on the bus? I can't tell if that's entitlement or just stupidity, or if it's all just wrapped up in one dickhead burrito. God, I don't know. It's normal to take long bus trips by yourself, but I personally would never expect any of my friends to do what this so-called friend is asking OP to do. It comes across as so rude and unrealistic. Like, no, go away. If you're not going to come like a normal person would, don't expect me to do that. Don't even come. Just stay at home. Just go away. How hard is it? Not the a-hole OP. That's just a ridiculous request, and I would ignore them. Now in the comments, Mama Karen Yu says, not the a-hole. Your friend assumed you'd be willing to do something that is inconvenient for you in order to make it easy for her. If that is her expectation, she should say so up front, not wait until the day before. You will continue to be not the a-hole if you calmly and kindly tell her that her plan doesn't work for you, and that you hope she can still join. This is how we teach people what our boundaries are. Calm and kindly tell them what works for you, then calmly stick by them. Not the a-hole. Your friend is a grown adult. She can use her cell phone to help her navigate the bus system and meet the rest of you at the picnic. If she can't do it on her own, she doesn't need to meet you. But you aren't her nanny. If she had asked a few days before and didn't go to her class that day, then it wouldn't be an issue. But here she is, clearly using you as a personal driver. She doesn't go round the city on buses. Did my lady's chariot lose a wheel? It's an utterly ridiculous plan to start with, and for her to announce this rather than ask is pretty rude. If she doesn't want to get the bus alone, she needs to figure out alternative transport. Is she new to this city? Is that the issue? Because that's the only way I can understand her needing help navigating transport as an 18-year-old. And now onto the update. So I don't know why I'm even posting an update, especially days after everything happened and we all moved on, but I was scrolling through my profile and noticed the post just laying there and wanted to clear the air, so to speak, especially since I felt good about the whole business. I took the not the a-hole comments to heart and told my friend that I'm sorry, but I couldn't help her out on this one. At the same time, she sent me a message apologizing for her behavior and that she shouldn't have dropped that on my plate out of the blue on short notice, especially when it seemed that my plans were set. No, really. She sent her text at the same time I did mine. It was eerie. We ended things on good terms, and, joy of joys, I managed to convince her to take a cab on her own, told her which ones she needs to take, as our country has a different approach when it comes to transportation methods, what to say to the taxi driver, and followed her up on the phone till she met us at the agreed place. She was proud that she took the initiative, and we were proud of her for going out of her comfort zone like that. We had a really, really good time. We laughed till we couldn't breathe, and everything seemed normal again. God, missing the pre-pandemic life. So, thank you to everyone who took the time to comment on my post, and be safe. Edit. Hi everyone, I just wanted to say wow. Just wow. Thank you so much for the kind words. I couldn't stop smiling while reading them. Oh, and thanks for the awards too. I've read and reread every single comment, and every one of them made me smile. I'm going to try and reply to everyone a bit later, but I wanted to clarify a few things first. For those wondering, no, there's no cultural reference as to why she couldn't come alone. And girls are permitted to go out, of course, because I'm a girl too. Now, I wouldn't go and say that the streets are 100% safe, nor that taking a cab or bus is an easy thing to do in our country, so I totally understand her reluctance to take the bus alone, especially since it's her first time. And if circumstances had been better, I wouldn't have hesitated to go to her. I'll admit that it was a bit weird when she insisted that I should come get her, even when it became apparent that the alternative way to reach us was taking a taxi, because she's familiar with our cab system, as she takes one almost every day. But once again, now that I've given the situation some thoughts, it's completely understandable. I can't fault her for wanting to feel safe. Oh, and Google Maps works just fine. I use it regularly, even though I'm familiar with the streets, because it's just better to be safe than sorry. And once again, thank you on my behalf, and on her behalf too, for those of you applauding her daring and how she quickly came to her sense and realized the way that she went about the whole situation wasn't that great. She's a wonderful, amazing girl who deserves every bit of encouragement you guys gave her in the comments. Alright guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you need a good laugh, please do check out my second channel, Markee 2, links down in the description below, or it's going to appear somewhere on the screen here at the end, little bubble with my face on it. As always, a big shout out to my Patreon and channel members. Your faces are surrounding me right now, and I love to have you guys with me, and down in the comment sections of each and every video, and just knowing that you're always there to support me. It's a humbling and lovely feeling. And rest assured, I do see you, and I do notice your support, and I thank you every day for being here and helping me along this journey. Not much else to say besides that, guys. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. I do hope that you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to. I will see you in the next video, and thank you again. Bye.